Good day, folks. Hope you're having a really good one. I have been looking forward to this for quite some time because we have a lore video today that really does lend to going off the cuff. Because whilst this video is about the Leagues of Votan, we also don't have a lot of lore to go on in terms of this faction. Instead of good and bad points, all of this video is melded in together, and at the end, I will let you know what I would like to change for the growing exile verse that is taking shape in your heads. Before you do anything else, if you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, and if you really like what I do, then the Patreon is also down below. Head over there. If you do that, then you get to send me in questions for the Q&A that we do every single week that I will read out, and there's also a place for us to talk more reliably rather than me just going on about this all the time and jumping on the Discord every now and again. So, love you a long time. Let's get started, shall we, with the Leagues of Votan. Now, the Leagues are a faction that, shall I just say, when I first heard about what Games Workshop were going to do with the Leagues of Votan, I was not very excited, because the Leagues of Votan have always been in the 40k universe, honestly. When I first heard that, I did a big, massive eye roll, because I thought, okay, I really hope that they don't just throw the Leagues in there and say, no, they've always been there, that we just haven't shown you them. You know, they've just been off to the side, not doing anything, right? I really hope that they would come out with a rabbit out of the hat to show us why the Leagues of Votan haven't been around. And during the Great Expansion, during the first waves from Earth, way back in the day, way before the 40k setting was even a thing, the first colonists went into the Galactic core. And to survive there, the advanced humans of that time, obviously, they genetically moulded themselves to fit their new environment. So, they went into the Galactic core to mine, and they changed themselves genetically to be better miners, and to better withstand the crushing gravity spikes of that area of space. It's lovely, elegant lore that gives us space dwarves, and I love it, right? I really, really, really like that. Behind them, as the rest of the galaxy kind of regressed in technology, they lost the ability to go in and see and talk to the Leagues of Votan, because, you know, the Imperium regresses as time goes on. The Imperium that even the Emperor leads in the Great Crusade is nowhere near as powerful as the Empire from the Dark Age of technology. We know that, and that's where the Leagues of Votan come from. And so they've kind of gone away from everybody else. There are lots of really cool metaphors where they've basically gone to heaven, they've ascended to heaven, and we lose the ability to talk to them and get there and speak to them because they're in the galactic core. It's hard to get there. It's all exploding suns and black holes, right? Okay, so let's leave the Imperium to the side for now and move back into the Leagues of Votan and explore what makes them work. One thing that I really love about them is the Ancestor cores. It's an incredible melding of 40k lore with the STCs and fantasy tropes. It also finally gives the Votan, the dwarves, a solid reason for being so advanced. One of the main parts of Warhammer Fantasy that I didn't like about the dwarves was their constant weird helicopter stuff and other advanced tech, you know, the gyrocopters and all that, and other advanced tech that looks extremely comedy-like in a setting that's supposed to be quite dark. Here, the Votan outstrip the Imperium in terms of tech, but they've had to, and they have had STCs to go off of since day one, and it gives us a lovely little look into what happens when you have a standard template construct available from the very first days of your being as a people, right? For STCs, for people who don't know, STCs are standard template constructs. They are the AIs and the computer machines that essentially allowed humanity in the Dark Age of technology to expand across the galaxy so quickly. You can literally fire one of these things at a planet, it will terraform that planet, it will build an entire city for you to live in, and will actually develop systems that go along with ecosystems of the planet so that it doesn't destroy the planet, and it can make an entire society over a couple of 100 years. It is that powerful. And the Leagues of Votan have had a few of these things lying around since the very first days that they were walking around in space. Which means, yeah, they're far more advanced than a lot of us give them credit for, or than the Imperium would ever give them credit for anyway. So those are the origins of the Votan, and why I think they're an incredibly elegant race. Let's look at the evolution of the League, shall we? So the Ancestor cores are essentially gods by how evolved from STCs they are. In fact, it would be kind of hard for the Mechanicus to even separate one from the other. This is elegant again, as the Imperium, at least the Mechanicus, can maintain that the Ancestor cores are in fact shards of the Omnissiah, right? So, whilst we have these, I really love the line. In fact, I've built an entire setting around this line that I've not released to anybody yet, but I will do. Where it's a line that says, as technology advances, it becomes inseparable from magic, right? Technology advances to a point where magic and technology are the same thing. And I think we're doing that with the gods, with the Leagues of Votan. We're actually making sure that as technology advances and gets more and more and more clever, and becomes, the AI gets more and more and more on blob about, wanting people to be happy and not wanting to kill us all. The line between machine and god becomes very, very, very blurred until now, 10,000 years later. We don't know how time moves in the Galactic Core, as the warp moves. It could go sped up or slowed down, we don't know. The Leagues of Votan now do not separate their Ancestor cores from gods. They're literally gods to them, right? There is a vast difference between the different kin, as in the dwarves, as in the squats, or whatever you want to call them, that are within the Leagues of Votan. Some are warlike, others are explorers and artisans. Literally, entire cultures are formed by the whims of the STC gods that they went into the Galactic Core with. Again, this is Games Workshop using the current 40k systems to create something completely new, and I'll get into why that's a good thing a bit later on. The reason such things have not been found is, like the Tau, their souls, as in the souls of the kin, are dimmed in the warp, and are hard to pick up by chaotic energies and demons and things like that. This may seem like bullshit plot armor, but it is actually a thing that dwarves do in many other fantasy systems. They don't dream, and so are not perceptible by demons, but also they cannot do magic. Have a look at things like Lord of the Rings and Dragon Age if you want to know where this all comes from. I love it when 40k harkens back to actual fantasy for the core tenets of some of its lore. It's elegant, it's beautiful, it's lovely, and it goes back to the core DNA of what's at the very start of Warhammer 40,000, and that's fantasy. What people don't seem to realise is 40k isn't really a sci-fi setting. It's a science fantasy setting. That's what it is, right? People keep throwing Mass Effect at me as like, well, who would win out of like 40k Mass Effect? Well, number one, 40k would beat the shit out of Mass Effect, and it's not even close, right? 40k would laugh at the Reapers. Like, the Reapers would not even be a thing. They would just get laughed off the face of the earth. One 40k race could beat the Reapers on their own. That's it. You could take the weakest 40k race, they would still beat the Reapers. Just saying, right? If you don't know who the Reapers are, go and play Mass Effect, it's awesome. Power levels don't really mean that much of a thing to me when you, in going what is a quality setting or not. Now, what I would actually equate 40k to is Star Wars, right? So, Star Wars is also science fantasy, but it is also a science fantasy setting that doesn't have very many hard rules. It's a very soft science fantasy setting, and it's very much a lighter science fantasy setting. Sure, there's dark stuff in it. The Sith exists, for example, but it's over there. It's on the Flash Gordon side, on purpose, by the way. That's what George Lucas wanted to make, right? It's over on that side. It's on the pulp side of science fantasy. Whereas the grimdark side is Warhammer 40,000. They are the poster boys for the dark, menacing science fantasy tropes that we've seen in Warhammer 40,000. That's why it's its own thing, and it's so addictive and challenging to people, is because there's nothing else like it, right? And that's why I love Leagues of Votan and the way that they mould straight in there. They go straight in, and not just that, though. They harken back to fantasy tropes that we've known from day one, and I love that. I love that. So, why are they here now, and where have they been? That was my main crux, right? The Great Rift essentially ripped the galaxy open and popped open the box in which the Leagues of Votan were living. That's essentially it, right? There is some vague notion that the Votan are also becoming more reclusive and simplistic in their outlooks, and that they are actively losing their intelligence. But aside from a vague line or two, I have not found anything to support this at all. And I think anybody on YouTube telling you that this is the case is either hasn't done their homework, or is taking a very spurious line from the lore and extrapolating it into saying, look, they're all becoming retarded, or they're all becoming, like, regressive. They're not, right? We have one or two lines saying something along those lines, right? We don't have anything concrete in the lore telling us that the Leagues of Votan are losing their entire intelligence, right? They're becoming more reclusive, sure, but that doesn't mean they're forgetting how their own technology works. Let's be honest, right? Right? So, like, anyone telling you that has either read the lore not entirely correctly, or has just read one line and said, that's it, that's what we're doing, and they've run off with it without actually thinking about it, okay? So, as reasons go, though, I suppose the galaxy being broken apart and the people coming out and into the galactic core now, I guess that kind of works. The Leagues were also not around for much of the problems that the Imperium has had with the other Xenos races. As such, they have very little in terms of built-in hatred for such things. They will actively go around taking samples of Xenos races, and even seeing people like the Necrons as rivals to their own technological ends, rather than being actual alien filth. In fact, the Necrons and the Votan are eerily quite similar, with their themes of technology and godhood melding until you can't tell the difference from one or the other, right? They are very... I would be very surprised if we don't see the Leagues of Votan not allying with the Necrons, but being considered, kind of like, trade friends with the Necrons. Why? Because they have similar technology, levels of technology, right? It's outstripped by the Necrons, really, but the Necrons will still look at the Votan technology and go, oh, that's pretty neat, and they have similar religions, right? They're very, very similar ways. They're either gonna be slightly weirdly allied, but not allied, you know what I mean? But along the same lines. Or they're gonna absolutely fucking hate each other, because that's what religions do, and that's where I would go with it, right? Look at Christianity and Islam, right? Oh, I know. No, just bear with me, right? Don't leave. Look at the Crusades, right? If you actually look at the core tenets of Islam and Christianity, they're essentially the same fucking religion. Well, there are only one or two slight things that are different from one or the other. That's why they're both classed as Abrahamic religions. They come from the same genus. They come from the same thinking, right? They come from the same Abrahamic texts and things of that Judaism does. Judaism's older than both, and they both splinter off from that. And we have, one of them is rooted in Western society, went off with Rome and all that, and one of them's rooted in Eastern society and went off with the Turks and the Mamluks and all them, right? So we had a big separation there, and that's where we are. But they are also very, very, very simple, but nobody fights harder than brothers. That's what those two religions are. They're brothers. But nobody fights harder than family, right? And that's how I would treat the Necrons and the Votan. They would be at each other's throats, mainly because, and they hate each other more than anything else, because they remind each other the worst bits. So the Votan remind the Necrons of, oh my god, we're actually kind of like these organics. I hate that, right? And the Votan are like, oh my god, they've turned into complete machines. That's ridiculous. Let's murder them all, right? And we would have that kind of a relationship between the two, right? I wouldn't ally them. I'd have them at each other's throats. In fact, I would have the first major war with the Votan coming back be against the Necrons. It's a huge crusade they lead against the Necrons, and we go from there. And that's the reason why the Imperium isn't ready to just annihilate them for being mutants, right? They're like, no, these guys are killing our enemies, and they're doing it as humans. So okay, fair enough, we'll leave them alone. That sort of thing. Anyway. So what would I change? We've already gone into one thing that I would change. As the Leagues of Votan are expanded, I am sure this will be warped in some way, but I actually like how they have been settled into the lore. As you can tell, I don't have that much that I hate about them. I actually think if I was going to write the Leagues of Votan, they'd be very similar to how Games Workshop have done it. I do think this is a solid look at what the writers of Games Workshop can do when they aren't saddled with 30 plus years of convoluted lore to get through to make their point. It must have been really refreshing to create something from scratch for once, and I think the success of them means that we may be seeing new races like the returning Rangdan and others come back to 40k at some point. I think this may have wet the whistle of a Games Workshop to the point that, yeah, we liked creating something really new here. We had a lot of freedom to do with whatever we wanted to do. So why don't we do it again? You know, why don't we do it with another race and another race and another race? I think we may be seeing new races coming back that don't just challenge, but might actively wipe out older races. I'm not kidding, right? You can still play your older races in 40k, but they'll now be like stragglers of this annihilated race, right? So when the Rangdan come back, you know, they could take down several Space Marine chapters, you know, things like that. Let's not forget, the Dark Angels at the very height of their powers, where they were one of the most advanced forces in the galaxy, were nearly wiped out by the Rangdan. So that's not, you know, it could end badly when we start bringing these things back. But I like that. I like the fact that we have this huge scope now. When Games Workshop have done it once, and they clearly enjoyed it, and the lore works really well when you're not saddled with 30 plus years of lore to work around in the first place. I love it. I think it's done really well. Anyway, moving on. As such, I would only change one huge thing about the Leagues of Votan. I would make them dwarves. I know. They are dwarves already, right? Well, no. I'd make them literal fantasy dwarves in space. Keep the tech, keep the attitude, keep the elegant lore that slides them right into the setting, keep all of the artwork that you're seeing on screen right now. That's all canon, right? I love all that. In my lore, though, each league is loosely allied to the others, and each is built around a massive asteroid or moon or space station, as the leagues see planets as inherently filthy, right? They act like the Quarians of Mass Effect. Their time in space has essentially annihilated their immune systems to the point that spending too long outside of their suit on any organic surface means they start dropping like flies. This has led to the STC Ancestor core gods to basically tell them to not go down to planets, and after a while, this evolved into, it is literally a sin to be on a planet, right? This is how they think. This is how their religion is different to everybody else's. They're like, no, planets are, that's where plants grow. Ugh, get rid of that, right? Ugh, horrible, right? We eat Xenos meat. We eat aliens. Any sort of meat we find out in the galaxy or on a planet where we can just go down in our suits and pick up, we will eat that, right? That's where prey lives. Prey lives on planets. We're not prey, we're predators, right? That's how they think. And over 10,000 years, this has become more and more and more religious and dogmatic until they, even a Votan being, even a kin being on a planet in their suit, they find it really like, oh, I hate being here. Oh, jeez, no. Look at all this dirt. God, it's horrible, right? They're literally scientists who don't like being messed up. Like they love, if they're in space, man, they will mine and mine and mine and do like all dwarfy shit. They love it. But if they're on a planet and there's actual mud there and there's like wetness and bacteria, like, no, this is horrible. Give me sterile space, please. And we'll have some fun there. That's exactly how they've evolved. They've evolved to survive in really high gravity environments because most of their asteroids are surrounding black holes and things like that. But also, they've survived to survive in space, right? They can't deal with disease, which means whenever Nurgle comes across these guys, they may be fucked. Like, they may be like, oh my god, and that's why they need to rely on other people, like the Imperium, right? That's why you can't just... The main weakness of the Votan in the current lore is that they don't need anybody. One race shouldn't be able to do everything, and the Votan in the current lore can pretty much do everything. They have every strength in the lore, and none of its weaknesses. You need to give the Votan some weaknesses, and this is what they would do, right? They can't deal with disease. I mean, they wouldn't get wiped out by it because they're so technologically advanced. They would stem it eventually, but they would lose like a quarter of their numbers to a virulent plague, right? they can't deal with it, and so they go above and beyond to try and stay away from it. They don't really land on planets unless they have to. They don't really like anyone who lives on planets. They don't like dealing with them. They're quite reclusive in that way, and that's where their religion goes. It goes, yes, gods and machines are very similar, but in doing that, we don't even like living on planets, which is why they really don't like the Mechanicus, because they're so tied to Mars and their Forge worlds, and that's fucking disgusting to them, right? This means, though, that when the Great Rift breaks open, the Galactic Core and the Leagues head out, they are appalled by what they find. Conflict immediately comes with every race they come across, as they see them as planet-humping heathens. Only when the Leagues meet the Ecclesiarchy do things calm down, I know, but I want to give the Ecclesiarchy, the Imperial Church, an actual moment to shine, right? I think it's unfair how 40k keeps harping on about how evil religion is. No, it's not. Religion's great if you use it properly. Fire isn't evil, right? It's only evil when you use it to burn a fucking house down, right? Well, the priests are experts at melding in cultures, as in the priests of the Ecclesiarchy have been doing this for 10,000 years. When the Ecclesiarchy find a human population that worships other gods, they don't just wipe them out. That's a lie you've been told by people who like to sensationalize 40k lore, right? There are a lot of lore people on YouTube who are ridiculously stupid. And as in they read the lore and they see what they want to see rather than what's actually there. These are the people who love the memes, love all that. Yeah, nonsense, stupid. Actually read what's there, please. And don't try and interject what you want there to be there, right? And if you're going to do it like I do it, please. Do it like a whole separate section where you talk about what you want to see. That's what you're supposed to do, right? But a 40k lore is the 40k lore. So, if the Ecclesiarchy killed every single human world they found, we would have no human worlds left, because that's how sporadic religion becomes when you're in a galaxy, right? Instead, much like the Roman Empire did, much like Christianity did, much like most religions that are so huge do, they go to a new world, they see the gods that you have, and they say, I recognise that god. No, he's not a god, he's a son of the Emperor, and his name's Sanguinius. You have an angelic figure in your religion. Well, we also have an angelic figure, and I think they're one and the same. And people go, oh, yeah, that's true, because you're not telling me that my beliefs are bullshit, you're telling me that there's another guy out there called the Emperor, and he's even more powerful, and he'll look after me in an even better way, and that my god still exists? Cool, right? And that's how the Ecclesiarchy bring the Leagues of Votan on side. They don't quite bring them on side, but they stop them killing humans, which is the main thing, right? Okay? So, the Ecclesiarchy do calm things down. The priests are experts at melding in the cultures and gods of regressed human societies into the worship of the Emperor, and they do this with the Votan. Not converting them, the Votan don't worship the Emperor all of a sudden, but they recognise the Emperor as probably... They think he is the wider humanity, right? Ancestor core. They think he's an STC. When he's explained to them, they think, these guys have an STC as well. Good on them. He's not as good as ours, but good on them. You know, we found some common ground here, right? So they don't convert the Votan, but they do smooth over the cracks enough that the Votan don't see the rest of humanity as infidels that need purging immediately. Instead, they look at them as idiotic cousins who actively need shepherding. As long as they don't get too close to the Ancestor cores, right? Because the League's main issue is with the Mechanicus and the Necrons. Those are the two things that the League really don't like. And these two, as in the Mechanicus and the Leagues of Votan, are almost constantly at war, with the Mechanicus telling all and sundry that the Leagues of Votan have AI and that they worship AI. Which the Votan strenuously deny, because they don't think the armoured cores are AIs, right? The armoured cores. They don't think the Ancestor cores are AIs. They think that they are gods. They're not AIs, they're gods, right? And to be honest, the Leagues of Votan are too powerful for the Imperium to just drop everything and face at the drop of a dime, right? A reckoning may one day come, though. Right? Conflict is seeded between the Imperium and the Leagues of Votan. In this setting, each league is built into a massive asteroid or moon, or even space station, which each has its own customs, colours, heraldry, and military specialties that you can use on the tabletop. Some leagues actively travel around the galaxy on powered rocks or massive ships, surrounded by advanced war fleets. They scavenge and steal the tech of other races, and pillage anything they can to support their growing alliance empire spreading out from the galactic core. Essentially, they are deep space mining the 40k faction. I would even inject some of the old 40k humour into the Votan. If you're going to do humour, let's do it here, right? It won't be ridiculous, it'll be toned right down, but it's still there. They are essentially a toned down mixture of Red Dwarf, Alien, Dwarves from the Dragon Age as a hybrid that are honestly rather confused by how constantly violent the galaxy has become. They aren't adverse to war, they really enjoy it. It simply has to have meaning for them to do so. The Leagues of Votan in my setting are here to do two things. Number one, build massive things to impress their Ancestor core gods. And number two, use those things to punch infidels in the face forever. What do you guys think? Have I strayed too far from Leagues of Votan as they are in the lore? Or would you actually buy this army? I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you like what Games Workshop have done with them so far? Or do you think they're too close to normal dwarves? I don't know. I want to hear what you think. I will speak to you tomorrow, where we'll be doing some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I really do hope that your working week is going very, very, very well. Love you a long time. Have a good one. See ya.